Well, hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I want to welcome you again to our show, Level Up. My name is Chip Mitchell. I serve as the host, and it's a great opportunity to be with you here this afternoon. And I just want to say this show has been fantastic for me. It has enlightened me on many different levels. It has really inspired me to continue to do many of the things that I'm doing, but it's also connected me to a number of people and lives and hearing their stories and hearing how they've overcome and some of the obstacles and challenges that they've faced. And then likewise, it inspires me when I face obstacles and challenges that I can be inspired to continue and to press on. And I can't thank all of our guests that make the commitment to be on the show, to share their life. They're sharing very personal things in their own life, but I really appreciate that. And today we have a new guest on our show, along with the others who've always joined us. Mel Wells is with us, obviously. My hero, my friend, a great source of inspiration for me. Mel, it's great to have you. Again, thank you for being with us. Is everything working okay with your audio and your sound? So I think Mel's sound is not working that great. But what we're going to do is we're going to introduce the folks that are on our panel today. First, we've got Cordell. Cordell, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners and make sure you unmute yourself as well.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Cordell Williams. I am from, the streets of North Philadelphia. I grew up with Mel Wells. Myself, we've been knowing each other. I'm 49. We've been knowing each other approximately about 38 years. I think I met Mel when I was maybe 11 or 10. I come from, that area in North Philadelphia and, adapted to the streets very early on in my life. That was my first addiction. My first addiction was the streets and the street life and running in those circles and doing those things and being a part of the problem, being that individual whom we're trying to reach now, with the selling of narcotics, the toting of guns, being a violent criminal and things of that nature. Did 5 years in the penitentiary, came home and realized that, hey, there has to be a better way, but still was dibbling and dabbling in the streets in a certain sense. And then I realized that, hey, I have children that are growing up without their father, children that a son and a daughter that were growing up without their father. And, now I have grandchildren. So I had to change some things. And I'm beginning to change some things, went to school, got a college degree.
Come on, Cordell.
You went to school, got a college degree, came out and wanted to be an agent of change. That's led me to be a social worker. So I work in the field of, I'm an opportunity development coach for a company called ECS. But outside of that, I am a person that is definitely serious about reaching back and helping others to understand that there is a better way, to help them level up, to help them understand that there is a different path that they can take and utilize, those skills and those transferable skills and the knowledge that they have from the streets to be able to propel them to do things legally.
Yeah.
To be able to propel them to do things that, otherwise, they might not have the resources to get involved in, and, what that's led me to do also is that to, as you can see, get ready to launch my own podcast. My wife owns a boutique now. I'm a part of a network marketing company called Total Life Changes, where I'm a national director. So I speak on a global stage to over, in over 152 different countries. I'm a motivational speaker also. So, I've done some things that has changed my life. And now I feel like it's time for me to reach back and help those individuals who struggle with had some of the same struggles and came up, as I came up. And, but in order to do that, I feel like I realized that, we had to find out what is the root of the problem. And each individual person is different. Each individual person is different. They might have a different root or suffer from a different type of trauma, right? That they're associating their anger and how they cope with, being from the urban city or being from where they're from. You know what I mean? Some people may have grew up without a father. Some people may have grew up without a mother. Some people may have grew up in foster care. Some people may have been like myself, in and out of the penitentiary. So, to reach back and to find out from individuals as a whole. Sometimes we try to focus on everyone. And what happens is everyone doesn't have the same plight. Even though they might be going in the same direction, everyone doesn't have the same plight. Sometimes I like to individualize it and help a person be a participant in their own process. So, and that's one of the things I studied in school is the resiliency model. Why do some people make it and some people don't? And one of the reasons is some people have been always told what to do and never been a participant in their own process. And they don't have the same resources. We already start from the back of the line. Being African American, we already start from the back of the line. So how hard is it for us to get to the finish line if they keep moving the finish line, and we're already starting in the back of the line? So we have to work extra harder to get to where we want to be.
Well, and we got to get on the right track, because if you're in the wrong field, you can be in the front of the line going the wrong way.
True. So
Cordell.
that's my goal, and to look for other things, and to so far as showing individuals, like everyone's a 9-to-5 is not for everyone. I've done things with entrepreneurship now that has opened my eyes to different investments. You know what I mean? Like I just started a very new investment. I'm super excited about it. I invested in some Bitcoin, and I've invested in this and I've invested in that. Now it's like, okay, I'm seeing some things come to fruition now. Hey, it's up to me and other people to go back to our neighborhoods and say, hey, listen, there's a better way. I can show you the way. Here's what you want to look at.
Come on.
And that's my mission. But the first thing we got to do, and I'm glad you just brought John up on the screen. The first thing we got to do is we have to, number one, we have to get to the root cause of what's plaguing our community. And I think that John, with his organization, is getting to that root cause of him being in the field and coming from where we come from, and being of that age to be able to reach back to those young men and have a conversation with them young men. Because when we settle disputes, it was always an old head that came to us and said, hey, y'all got to squash this beef. And we sat down at the table and we squashed our beef. My uncle has been locked up for 37 years. And I talk to him once a week. He's been locked up for 37 years. He has life. And I talk to him each and every week. And he tells me the same things he's told me about from the beginning. When I was 16, when I was 12 years old, when I was going up there, one of the things he used to say to me was that, hey, look. Oh, I'm sorry. So, yeah. Hey, look. We used to get involved in some nonsense. And now it was about nothing. I used to think it was about something. We had a mission, right? It was about our nonsense was about nothing too. Like the things we get into, and it was about nothing too. So finding out what it is, and John and Rob are doing great jobs of finding out what the root cause of it is, and then helping the young men find a solution to find out how to alleviate that. I'm sorry.
Well, no, Cordell, hey, you got a compelling story, man. You got a lot on your heart, and I appreciate the words that you're sharing, and so do our listeners. John, welcome again. It's great to see you. He's the young man at the table. Us old folks got to let the young folks at the table. So, John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So, first and foremost, thank you, Cordell, and thank you, Chip and Mel Wells, for having me. My name is John Solomon. I was born and raised in 24th in Somerset, just like a lot of other kids. I grew up seeing a lot of gun violence within the community. So much so that by the age of 13 or 14 or so, I found myself involved in gun violence. At the age of 15, I watched a close friend of mine get killed the same year I was shot. 17 years old, I was arrested for a firearm. I came home after spending 10 months of placement. I graduated that year, but I spent 10 months on placement. I came home and was arrested 3 months later for a firearm and an attempted murder. During my time in prison, obviously I turned my life around. I spent almost 5 years in prison, and I came home and I got involved in the community almost right away. And specifically, I got involved in violence prevention. Um, Came home 2015. By the time 2016 came around, I founded and created an organization called Endangered Kind. Endangered Kind is a mobile advocacy organization in Philadelphia that is helping local communities shift the narrative and impact of gun violence by engaging high-risk youth and young adults. Um, Me and Rob Schuler, who's going to be speaking within the next few minutes or so, we are the two people, the main people that represent the organization. And we go out into various parts of the city and we engage high-risk youth and young adults to try to build trust that they haven't, that a lot of people in the city haven't been able to build, because sometimes we're working with young people that are traumatized, they have trust issues. So we try to build that bridge to connect those individuals that are directly involved with gun violence to programs and services and leaders that they need to connect with in order to transition out of gun violence.
Mm-hmm. Come on, man. Well, hey, I appreciate it, John. Your story is inspiring and compelling. And I just try and tell you, man, at your age, it's just amazing what you're doing. Rob, well, good afternoon. It's great to see you again. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
What's going on? Thank you for having me again. I'm Rob Schuler. I'm from the same area as my cousin John Solomon. I represent Endangered Kind also. I'm a nightlife promoter in Philadelphia. I do stuff like a high level, and through that, I met people from all over the city, and I've been doing it literally since I was like 15. Met different kinds of people from different backgrounds all over the city, and I have a big social influence amongst the city, and a lot of trust with a lot of guys that's endangered, that got things going on that they may want to transition out of or just need more resources. And I'm just here to use my voice for a bigger platform. So I'm working hand in hand with my cousin John. Like, we go out and we talk to these guys, we engage with them, and we just build relationships that we just build a different rapport with them than we already have. Try to show them something different and get them involved with what we got going on, and then get them to do the same thing that we doing at some point in time, and it'll be a domino effect from what we trying to do. Try to get the guys that got the influence that we know to get on our time, and they can get the guys that's under them or the guys that look up to them on a good time and on a good accordance, just to kind of build some structure.
Come on. Well, hey, Rob, I so appreciate your story, but also the work that you're doing. And
Thank you.
I just want to remind all of us, one of the things that we're trying to do with this moment, this table talk that we have, is to, one, hear each other's story so that we know, one, we're not alone. And to hear also how individuals are overcoming and creating new opportunities for themselves and those that are around them. But then the third piece is the connection piece, bringing in guest individuals to share their story. Because one of the things that we face in our communities is not gaining access to resources, gaining access to folks that have accomplished some great things. And when you don't have access to that, you lose out on knowledge. And when you lose out on that, it doesn't particularly go well for you when you're trying to overcome. And today's guest is Karim Hutson. Karim is a dear friend of mine for well over 26 years. I've had the opportunity and the privilege to watch the progress of his life from a young college student, I think junior year in college, possibly into his senior year, and hearing him as a young man in his young 20s, dreaming of what he wanted to do and where he wanted to go. And then I get a chance to see the back half of that story and see him accomplish some great things. And Karim, I want to welcome you to Level Up. And I want to say thank you for joining us today. And maybe we could start off, Karim, with you just kind of telling us a brief kind of, after you graduated, what were some of your dreams? Karim currently lives in New York City, that city of dreams, right? And he is the the principal owner of Genesis Partners Genesis Properties.
Genesis
And,
Companies.
What is it's
Genesis Companies. Genesis Companies.
Okay, Genesis Companies. I'm sorry, I messed that up. But he has done some phenomenal things with his company, and he'll tell us a little bit about that later. But maybe, Karim, why don't you just introduce yourself, kind of where you grew up, and what were some of your dreams once you graduated college, and what you're currently doing.
So one, thank you so much, Chip. You know, it has been a while. You look like you haven't aged a day, my friend. And,
I caught up with you with this, though.
He was always the OG on the block, but he was always buff, so that helps him out.
Not anymore.
It's great to see you, and I'm humbled and excited and thankful to be in the presence of all your brothers who just shared some impactful stories and deep commitments to the community. So I appreciate just kind of being here and in the presence of all of y'all, and so thank you for having me. My story, I'm a New York City boy, born and raised. I made a couple of trips down to Philly once in a while, but I haven't spent a ton of time down there. And so thank y'all for letting the New York boy show up at your podcast, at your show today. And hopefully I have a little, we have some fun things to talk about.
Sure.
But it's one community, man, for sure, right? And so we all are talking about sharing, experiencing a lot of the same stuff. And I love that we're reaching out to each other and figuring out ways to network and connect, because, that is what it's all about. And that's where folks are doing and all around us, right? So we'd be foolish not to be doing it ourselves. So I commend you guys for having the insight, the wisdom to make something like this happen. I grew up in the Bronx. My parents were born and raised in New York. I actually lost my father to violence prior to me really knowing him. I believe I was 3 years old when he died. Apparently some domestic dispute, in the household. And so I never really knew my father, and my mother, raised me and my sister, and then kind of remarried when I was around 10 to a fantastic gentleman who I think you've met, Chip, who I consider kind of my father, and not just consider, but has been my father. And so we have definitely been blessed. I would say that, I was a pretty clean kid. I was, the smart kid that everybody kind of like hit on the butt and told him to just go in the room and be quiet, go in the lobby and be quiet. And everybody kind of just let me just be me. I kind of had the crazy mom that nobody wanted to deal with. and I was kind of the smart kid that kind of everybody on the block was relatively proud of, but kind of didn't pay a lot of attention to. We played football, did a little basketball, and I used to travel. My mom had a big commitment to just school and education, and I got into a gifted and talented program when I was in the public schools, and then they kind of connected me to a private school, which we couldn't afford. I think it was, I don't know how much money, $40,000-$50,000 a year to go there. But they gave me a full ride. And so I used to drive but we take the train all the way from the Bronx all the way to the Upper East Side, which is like probably about a half an hour train ride to get to school every day. And it was a blessing because it got me out of some of the craziness of the block, right? And got me into some different situations, which, when you're a kid, you don't really realize, the stuff that you're missing, right? And so, that was definitely an impact. And the education obviously set me up for fantastic opportunities that I was able to take advantage of. And when I decided to go to Amherst College, when I was a senior in school, I ended up going to Amherst, which is a small liberal arts school in Massachusetts, and doing a double major in economics and philosophy, but also, was a student body president. I ended up meeting Chip. He became a spiritual mentor trying to urge me to do the right things. and that was always nice. I played football, which was fun. So I got a chance to do some kind of cool things, in college. I had always aspired, because I feel like the only thing I ever knew in life was kind of lawyer and doctors. That's kind of what what everybody kind of, when you're growing up in the Black community back in those days, those are things that people would tell you to be. You got to be a doctor, you got to be a lawyer, right? And that was kind of, the path. And so I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I knew I wasn't good enough in science for medical school. But one of my mentors, who was at the school, who I met when I was student body president, he was a trustee. He basically invested in me and was like, Karim, I think you'd be an interesting person to do some stuff in business. And, I think you should do an internship in investment banking. I was like, investment banking, what is that? Right. It's like, I'm gonna sit behind a desk and crunch numbers all day. Who wants to do that? That's not fun. I went ahead and took the internship, and I went out to Chicago for the summer. I just had a blast. First of all, just going, being a Northeast kid, going to a different city, like, at that young age, it's kind of like, it blows your mind, because, these cats in Chicago, I mean, I feel like I could come to Philly and we'd have a lot more kind of in common.
Yeah.
Like you're going out to the Midwest, and those cats are completely different. The way they vibe and everything is completely different. So that was kind of mind blowing, just seeing that. That kind of introduced me to the world of business. And I realized that there were some interesting things happening, like these different companies that we would buy stuff from. There was like Boston Chicken was my first deal. Like I worked on how they got financing. I don't know if there's any Boston Chickens, and I just call Boston Market now.
Boston Market, yeah.
Like, just putting like that reality, like going to like where you would go buy up some chicken, and like putting that to like, I'm working on their financing. Like, how are they? I didn't realize that they went into the stock market and got all this money, from issuing stocks and bonds. And then the CEO actually came into the office and, with his crew, and was talking about how he's going to, what his plans were for the business and what they're struggling with, how they're thinking about their business. So it kind of opened up my eyes that like there's this whole world and how it operates with, little basic stuff that we do every day, right? Like that is not only about making money, but is about like how things operate, how they work, and impacts our everyday lives. So that kind of got me interested.
Karim, let me ask you a question about that. When here you are, this young Black guy, you're in an internship, and now you're in this room with these folks are bigwigs. They're wheeling a lot of money. Yeah. How did that impact you, and what triggered in you some thoughts when that happened?
It was all about exposure, honestly, and taking it in and understanding like what's happening. It's almost like anything. When you go in a room and you've never seen this before, and you see a lot of stuff happening, you're kind of like silent. You're just kind of like seeing things happen, and you're listening to what's going on. And one of the things I give credit to with the mentors I had was they weren't afraid to bring me into those rooms, right? And then they weren't afraid to talk to me about it afterwards and say, hey, you know what, this is what happened. And did you have any questions about it, right?
So you mentioned mentors a bit. What value would you place the mentors that were in your life, and what are some of the types of mentors that you had, and how can we capitalize? I mean, if I'm a young kid, 18 years old, and I'm in the streets here in Philly, I don't have an education. Is that a reality for me? Should I have mentors? What role could they possibly play in my life?
I would say that mentors are the most critical aspect, I think, of success. And you don't have to always think about them as mentors, but it's always relationships and networking. It's just like, having friends in the street or having friends on the block, right? Like, if you got the right friends, sometimes that keeps you out of trouble, right? They can give you a heads up as to what's happening, right? Like they could say, you know what, I went down there and it wasn't a great experience, right? So it's the same thing in business and in professional world, right? Like, you know, if you have somebody that can say, listen, I've been down this road before and I know where you're going to end up, or I would maybe tweak it a different way, or you learn from what they're doing, you see that what they're doing and what they're saying to you, and you're saying in your mind, okay, well, I think that's interesting, but I might tweak it and do it this way and see if it works better for me, right? And so I would say, like, in terms of success, mentorship is and networking and relationships are the most important thing. And then I would say the second most important thing is knowing yourself. And that brings me kind of to the end of my own like professional story. Like, I was an investment banker. I went on to do some private equity investment, which is like basically investing in private companies. So instead of like a McDonald's or something that's public, investing in a company that's not yet public on the market. And honestly, I was making oodles of money, but I didn't enjoy it. You know, it wasn't something that I felt like what I was passionate about. And so I stopped and did a career switch.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I remember that time period.
Yeah.
And Karim and I got reconnected. He was in New York, and he decided that he wanted to get his MBA. And he won't say this, but he got his MBA from Harvard. Right. And he commuted from New York weekly, worked on his MBA at Harvard, and then he said, you know what? I'm going to get a master's in divinity while I'm doing this. So when you think about hard work, this guy exemplifies hard work. But I remember there was a moment in your MBA process, and I said, well, what are you going to do? You said, you know, Chip, it's funny. Everybody that's here getting their MBA wants the job I already have. And you were like, so help me understand, what was that? Because obviously you were making phenomenal money. What was it that drove you to make a career switch? What was it?
You know, it was just the passion for what I was doing, right? And I just realized, you know, as I got more mature, like knowing what drove me, that, you know, at that point I was investing in technology companies, which, you know, is a great place to be, right? But I just wasn't passionate about technology and technology companies. Like, I enjoy using various technology platforms now, but that wasn't really what drove my passion. And I just realized that, like, when you get to a certain level and you're competing as, like, you know, a basketball player at the NBA level, right? If you're not going out there and practicing your jump shots and practicing your free throws every day, right, you're not going to be the best player at that level, right? And you're going to fall behind, right? And I realized the same thing is in business. It's the same standards. It's the same work ethic. It's the same practice, right? Like, if I'm not there practicing that training, committed to it, I'm not going to be the best. Maybe I can scrape by for a little bit. So that's how I knew it was not the place where I wanted to invest. And that's why I went to HBS and said, hey, you know what? I need to do something different. And there I began to develop mentors and develop relationships that would later become, you know, helpful to me, right? So one of the things.
How do you develop those relationships? How do you find yourself, obviously, in a position where maybe you don't have much to offer, but how do you bridge that gap? I mean, you know, we've got John here, right? And here's a young guy. He started a nonprofit organization that is obviously at the forefront of the city of Philadelphia. He and Rob, and the work that they're doing is absolutely fantastic. Well, how do they cultivate those relationships? How do they get in front of those individuals? And when you got in front of those individuals, you're pitching them something. How did you do that? And how can they best position themselves likewise to do the same?
I'm gonna give you a story, and it's not even about pitching and anything. It's like you know how the saying goes, man. If you hustling and you around the hoop, sometimes the rebound comes to you. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of life, man. Like, when I was out in Harvard Business School, and I want to be in real estate, I didn't know a lick. I didn't have any experience. There were people at Harvard who had a lot more real estate experience as I did. People generally knew I wanted to be in real estate. But you know what I did? I said, you know what, I'm a New Yorker. I'm going to try to do something in New York. Right. So I kind of did my own research. I kind of asked people, like, you know, where does New York real estate happen at the local level? And they said, well, it happens at these things called community boards. I said, community board, what's that? So that's where, you know, a group of people get together from each community in New York City, and they talk about different projects and different real estate related items that might be coming up. Right. For discussion or coming up in the community. And oftentimes they sometimes have to vote on those items. So you know what I did? and I left Boston maybe once a month. And I went to community board meetings, and I just showed up like straight community person. I'm from New York. I showed up to community board meeting, and I listened. I listened to what was going on. And the funny thing is that when they see the same face, because there ain't that many cats who aren't involved showing up at these meetings, right? So then the community board chair stuff, like, hey, how you doing? You know, hey, you know. So, and then these two brothers who were real estate developers came in one day and gave this fantastic pitch to the community board. And I was like, wow, these guys are like, oh my gosh. And you know what? I just went up to one of the guys afterwards. I said, hey, sir, you know, I just enjoyed what you had to say. It was fantastic. I was really inspired. I'd love to learn more about your company. He said, hey, you know, sure, kid, give me a call. And like gave me his card. And I followed up. And I just emailed him and said, hey, I'm Karim Hutson. We met briefly. You know, I'd love to follow up. Next time I'm in New York, blah, blah, blah. And he said, great, you know, call me when you're here. Let me know. When I came and met. And ended up being my first job out of Harvard Business School. And so, you know, oftentimes it's that little hustle. It's everything we know what to do innately, right? Everything we know what to do innately yields benefits. And to be honest with you, even if I didn't make that relationship, you know, I would have understood a lot better what was happening in the community because I was going to those meetings. I would have known who some of the players were. Even if that relationship didn't necessarily happen, my wisdom and understanding of what was happening would have been better, which would have made me more competitive for when I did go out there and try to find a job. So I think it's, you know, so, and then I did other things like just asking people who might be in the know, hey, it's, you know, like where do I go to meet people in the field, right? So they had various groups they would point me to. And so then I'd start just sitting there and networking and talking to people. And people were generally interested in young folks who had an interest in the industry, right? Because, you know, especially I think sometimes even African-American young folks. And so they would talk to me and be willing to have me answer questions. And I rarely asked them for much of anything. I'd just be like, oh, I was at this meeting and this is what happened. I'm like, oh, yeah, because people like to feel like they're giving wisdom out, right? And so I would take advantage of it. And that's really how it happened. A lot of it was organically. And I would say, look, there's often times when you're working hard and doing the right thing, powerful people can spot you and come to you and say, like, you know, a lot of the trustee relationships that yielded opportunities for me. I'll give you another story just quickly, Chip. Like when I was at Goldman Sachs doing investment banking, right? Just a story how I got into private equity. I didn't know anything about private equity, right? I was a banker. I was learning that business. And one of the partners actually who I never met with, never worked for, called me one day. And I said, okay, hey, he said, you know, Karim, you don't know me, but I know you. I know I've asked about you and everybody tells me what a great worker and hard worker you are. I want you to leave Goldman Sachs with me and come to General Atlantic Partners and work under me, right? So that just goes to say, like, look, sometimes when you're out hustling and doing what you have to do and you got your head is down, you know, the coach picks you up and says, hey, you know what? I'm putting you in the starting lineup. And you're like, oh, right. I didn't know that. Right. So that just happens sometimes. It's not planned. It's not like a purposeful strategic decision that you made. You worked hard and then you were in the right place when it dropped down. And even though General Atlantic and that private equity didn't end up being necessarily the right place for me long term, it was fantastic. It taught me how to invest in entities. It taught me how to think about investments. So that was an important step in my pathway to getting to real estate. Wow. I realize all this time I haven't spoken anything about real estate, Chip.
Well, you know, that's the funny part. So currently, I think Genesis Companies, I think they've worked on about 50 projects in New York and North Jersey. I think it's around 50 projects, which is absolutely outstanding. I know Mel Wells, who's the president of ODAT. It's a nonprofit organization here in Philadelphia that's just all they, you know, if there's one place for us in our communities where we're seeing folks come from New York and buy up blocks in North Philly. They buy up these blocks. Yeah. They're putting up these condos for $400,000 and $500,000, and it, you know, how, you know, you obviously being someone who's well vested in the real estate. You know, maybe you guys can ask some questions. How can we capitalize on some of these
Let me ask something, Chip, if I
Yeah,
may.
go ahead,
You
Mel.
know I'm late, and Chip is my discipler, so don't get me later on when this live go off. I was
Hey,
on the
look,
road.
Mel, all I want to say is I mentored Karim, and look at how he's turned out. Just let
Oh,
me
I'm gonna get
mentor
money like
you and
Karim. I'm
prayerfully.
gonna be rich. I'm gonna be rich. That's what you're telling me, bro. Karim,
Well,
pleasure to
but
meet.
my,
Listen,
my,
You gotta
my
ask
only
him. Hold
issue
on, Mel. You
is
gotta ask him. You gotta ask him
no,
how
my
much
only
did I
problem.
listen to?
same go for me, bro. Same go for me.
The
Listen, but
problem
jump
is
in.
you guys are advancing so far in life, and you're leaving me behind. I'm just the old
No,
guy
no, no, no,
still
no,
sitting
no.
on the stoop.
Hey, Chip,
Okay.
you think you slick, Chip. Chip wants to cut the check so he can just retire and relax. My youngest looks out for me. But to get on the serious note here, and I do want to follow up with you, bro, and I appreciate you coming in. I was late, technical difficulties. We was on the street doing a lot of outreach with the police department, trying to do some stuff with SETA. You probably heard about the epicenter of all the drug traffic wars and things that are going down here in the city of Philadelphia. But I want to jump in real quick. So I want to make sure that we help somebody, right? And you said something, bro, that people have stigma attached to. One word, hustle, hustle. Can you elaborate? How is your hustle, different? Or how is your hustle? You may compare it to, I see Cordell up here. We hustle, we did things together. We thought staying up all night, staying out doing 3 days in a row, selling drugs, narcotics. We looked at it as hustling. And so can you, elaborate a little bit? Just a brief make. I have more questions because I really want to help somebody with the real estate piece and all this money that's coming from the government that's on the street and the high, rates of homicide. So what does that mean to you, the terminology hustler or hustling?
Hustling to me means being, I think about Kobe Bryant. It's like, just being so committed to what you're trying to do that you're willing to outwork the next person.
Wow.
That's
Right?
it.
You're willing to outwork the next person. And I may just be the most skilled person, but I'm still outworking you. Right. So I'm like double embarrassing you. I'm not only smarter than you, but I'm outworking you at the same time. Right. It's like the coach always tell you, like, you don't be outworked. Right. It's okay if they better than you, but don't get outworked. Right.
That's it. That's it. Right.
That's what it is. So listen, it's like when I was at Goldman Sachs, right? The motto was back in the day, now it's a little bit better now in investment banking, those cats were straight hustling. And you know what they said? The first person to go home, he's the weak link.
Wow.
Right? You can't, it was embarrassing to be the first person to leave the office.
Wow.
Right? You needed to be the person who was there all the time. The person when the partner needed something, you'd be like, hey, I'm here, 11:30, no problem. I'm here, I'm working. I used to sleep on my prospectus versus like the paper documents that they put the public offerings, they print the public offerings on. I would go into my desk and sleep on the prospectus. And then before the partner walked in, I'd be up at my desk typing. Hey,
so Karim, you telling me, Karim, I want people to hear this because you work with a lot of money now, but you had to go through a process. You had to take what a lot of individuals do when it comes to hustling. Like we believe staying up all night, but when we start to go to a real corporation, a real job, we can't take the way people talk to us. We don't want to work late hours. We want to check. Karim, be honest with you, I know people on the street right now who don't want to go through your process, but they want the check that you get. And so I just want to make sure that John and other individuals can put out there to the community, Chip, Cordell, especially broadcasting this and sharing this, is that what is hustling for real, for real? What does that really look like? When you go into the corporate world, having to sometimes even I used to have to sleep in my office as a supervisor 1 day at a time when I used to pass out condoms out in the streets. And now I'm the president of 1 day at a time. And a lot of people, they want the glory, but they don't want to actually create their own story. So I want to hit that. But Karim, I have something else to come with you with, right? And I'm sure John, Cordell, Rob, y'all agree with this. There's a lot of money on the street right now in our community. What do I mean by that? The government. Karim, I'm begging you to help me out here, man. We got to teach some people. I got people going out here, bro, buying $2,000 pair of sneaks with government money. So they was able to buy a pair of $2,000 sneaks. They was able to get somebody in contact with a person like you, a contact person like me, a Chip, and they probably could invest in that $2,000. That way, when everybody else, next summer, you'll be making money. You may have bought a pair of $50 sneakers compared to a pair of $2,000 sneakers. And Chip, I'm even learning how to buy old sneakers now. I'll talk to you later about that, right? Because the investment is where it's really at. Because the bosses don't really look like the people down here in North Philadelphia. They can walk right past us with $3 million in their pocket, with some Payless sneakers on, and they good and they happy. So what can we do? How can somebody invest some of this money that's on? I done heard, Cordell, people with $11, $21, $25,000 on the first of the month, and on the 30th month they call me to borrow money. Help me out, bro.
You know, and let me say something before you answer that question, Karim. And I give this to Karim's credit. You know, I think a lot of times we got to think outside of ourselves. You know, when Karim was working in this investment and things of that nature years ago, I mean, you're talking, I don't know, 20 years ago, somewhere around there, he had mentioned to me about the whole tech stuff, you know, and I wasn't making much money at all. I was probably making $40,000-$50,000 a year. But what I did was, he had said this, and he doesn't even know this. I went to my 401k and I moved, you know, my mutual fund. I said, well, let me split a portion of it and put it into the tech, you know, mutual fund, just because of what he was gleaning from his mentors at these big shops. Well, let me tell you, that fund, wow. And I just want to say thank you, Karim, and I'm not giving you a dime.
I need a commission, bro. What you talk about, man? So you know, listen, I would say honestly, and this is not investment advice, but getting wealthy, and you've heard all the time, is all about mentality, right? Like I would be networking with guys who have more money than me, right? And they would be, you know, slapping each other on the shoulder about how they got financial aid for something, right? I'd be like, this guy is looking for financial aid for something. He's like, it's free money. It's free money. But what he was doing, though, was utilizing his own personal money and reinvesting it in himself, right? Cutting his expenses as low as he can. And it's funny because when I started my own business, right, I started in 2004. So it was a year after business school. You know, I didn't have a lot. I was in a friend's office. You know, they were basically giving me free rent. I was trying to find deals, right? I had two investors that were friends of mine that were basically supporting me. But the entire thing was made possible by the fact that I was willing to live a life with reduced expenditures and expenses.
Karim, let me say something real quick. Let me say something. Get one. If I could say this, you know what that's called to us on the streets, y'all? Tupac made that up, right? Thug life. You was thugging it out. That's how you thug that out, right? To level up. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Right. So honestly, that's how, and I learned that lesson from almost all of my majority, you can call them white colleagues, who would say to me, listen, you know, Karim, my best advice is, you know, live as cheap as possible. Right? Because that's just more money that you have that you can invest into your hustle, into your game, into what you're doing. Right. So if I have, and my thought process has always been, right, like if I believe in myself, right, I believe in what I've started, right, and I save myself $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, right, because I cut my expenses to a level, right. I believe that $30,000, if I invested in myself and my business and what I want to do, right, that's going to have multiplier effects, right? Because I believe in myself to be able to produce a return on the investment that I'm putting in myself.
Wow. So
right? even so that's the way I'm thinking about it. That's the way I'm thinking about building wealth, even outside of the fundamentals of looking at a real estate investment, right? I want to invest in my own talents, my own ability, and I'm giving myself leeway not only to do that, but I'm also giving myself leeway, and I'm going to say this, to fail.
Come on,
because I used to always say to my wife, like, listen, when she first married, I said, listen, we make a good living. My wife makes good amount of money. But I said to her all the time, I said, listen, we could go and buy this house right now. And I have a business. I don't think it's going to go under, but I don't know. I don't know what could happen in 5, 7, 10 years. But I'm telling you right now, if we don't do that and you give us the ability to have this risk adjusted, like everything is risk, right? You know,
right.
We're going to have so much flexibility to do what we want in 3, 4, 5 years, as opposed to being like, oh my God, I'm glad we made it, we were lucky, or yeah, hey, good bet on ourselves, or oh, you know what, we're in a bad position, we got to start selling stuff. So some of it is, you know, and I don't know what y'all would call it in the streets, but for me, it's all about the riskiness of your profile, right? So if you're spending, it's like you make 10 and you spending 10, you've got a lot of risk on you, right? Because any drop in a dollar, you under, right?
Hey, bro, hold on. You just dropped the whole treasure chest on us right there. Because you're right. Risk takers. I think we all know about that on the streets. We go in the bank, that's a risk that we take to try to even rob the bank. But you saying maybe take a risk that I even took. I told Chip about this. With even people may laugh at you a little bit. You may not wear all the name brand clothes, and you saying it's like Giuseppe's. I think I'm saying that right, nephew. Giuseppe's, right? They may cost $1,000, $1,500, but you saying instead of investing in man you never even seen, you don't know if he's black or white. Buy yourself a pair of Adidas or something like that, and invest the rest of the money in yourself. Be your own walking brand. Become your own boss. So I just want to elaborate on what my brother Karim is saying here. Be a risk taker. Stop being like everybody else on the street, because we know that this money's hitting the street and everybody gonna look alike, right? But be a risk taker and be different. I remember I used to have to go in the Goodwill bags at Oda. I used to tell Chip this and grab old suits out the bags, and everybody would laugh at me. Now, everybody who laughed at me also now working for me. So Karim, I just wanted to thank you, bro, for elaborating on that. And I'll probably take this and edit this because just this portion, because I want the people, John, on the corners in the track who wait for this money to go to Saks Fifth and spend all that money to invest back in themselves and become a boss themselves. So Karim, thank you very much. I know Chip is going to do things. We got other people that got to ask some questions, but I'm telling you this, Karim, I don't move slow on things. You probably can tell that. I'm going to be talking to Chip. I'll set my appointment up with you so I can invest even more for my family and for the future generation. You laugh now, brother. I'm on your top, baby. Thank you, man.
Yeah. Hey, can I say something real quick, Mel? Because I got to jump off at 3:30. But you know, Mel, that's one of the ills of our community is that, you know, what you just described. You know, taking the $2,000 and going to purchase a pair of sneakers, going to purchase a pair of red bottoms, going to purchase a pair of Giuseppe's or whatever it may be. Right now. What I started to do is I got older now in business. In my business, attraction marketing is a big thing. I have a person in my business that she's big on attraction marketing. So she buys the Bentley, she buys but she also makes $1 million a month. She buys the Bentley, she buys these homes and things of that nature, right? But what I learned was that, hey, if I feel myself, right, going into a store such as Gucci or whatever it may be, and I think that I'm going to purchase a pair of sneakers or something that costs $1,000, I'll stop myself immediately and I say, I'm opening up whatever stocks I'm investing in now, and I'm putting that $1,000 in there, right? And so I'm sacrificing that, and I go buy me a pair of vapes. They cost $150, $120. If I got 40, I'll go buy me a pair of Nikes, or I'll go buy me a pair of something else. I'll buy stuff with my own brand on it, or things of that nature. Just those things. But getting people to that mentality, right? Getting people to that mentality, because we've had a sense of we come from a sense of lack, right? We come from a place of lack. When we were growing up, you didn't have this and you didn't have that, when everybody else around you had that, and you inspired to be all these people. From what you're seeing, what you're hearing, you inspired to be all these people, right? And you want to have the same things they have. So when they get that free money, the first thing they want to do is look like they have some money.
But that's the poverty mindset. Rolling. Go ahead, bro.
You either have two types of mindsets. You have either your money conscious or your poverty conscious. And your mind adapts to whichever mindset or whichever concept that you are more prevalent to. Yeah. So if you have that poverty mindset and you operate from a sense of lack, you'll never have enough no matter how much money you get.
Right.
What was the two different ones? Hold up, though, Brooke. I want people to catch it. What were the two different ones? Poverty mindset and what else?
The money mindset. This is your money conscious or your poverty conscious. That comes from the book Think and Grow Rich. I do a lot of self-development, guys. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. You want to understand. I don't, until I read a book called The Power of Zero, I didn't understand money.
Right.
So you have to, and that's another thing too. And I'm talking to John, Rob, you guys. Hey, educate yourself about this money. Because I'm getting an education, and I'm on your top too, Karim. I'm gonna be right at you. I'm gonna be calling Chip to set up my appointment, because I need to know where I'm going with this, because my whole thing is
Look at
being
that.
built for
Look
my
at that.
legacy.
Get Chip like everybody gonna be
I'll
calling me,
give
but I
you
want to make
access
sure.
to
Hey,
Karim
yo.
if you give me money. That's what
Hey,
I'm
no,
hearing.
no, hey, laugh now, cry later. That's what Chip is saying. Laugh now, cry later. But
That's it.
I want to keep up. And what I did catch, Karim, was the mentorship piece, right? I'm mentoring Rob and John. So when I set up my appointment, I want to make sure that I have my guys, my youngest, on the phone with me so they can listen in and learn. John has some questions. I probably covered them. John is looking at some real estate now that we're trying to go after. You know, a lot of people saying, wait. And I'm saying, no, you can take the legit risk right now and jump in and let your dreams and things start planting that seed of hope now. So I'm going to be following up with you, with my brothers. And I hope people out there that we're sharing this with understand what mentorship is. So I'm not only opening up this room that Chip opened up for me, for myself. Now it's time for me to open it up with somebody else and helping my brother Karim, because Karim may one day have somebody that I may need help at one day at a time. This is all it's about. I was watching my father last night, and he said, listen, it's simple. We just got to watch each other's back. And that's what we're going to continue to do. So thank you so much for being here today, bro.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, it is it's an honor. John and Rob, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to. I remember when I was a kid and we used to sit on the step and cars would go by and we all had a number. And whenever that number came up, that was my car. Like we desired things. And I don't know how much of that not having or not that ability to acquire has driven some of the violence, the jealousy that we're seeing in the streets. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they see me, I'm an old guy. They know I ain't nobody. Nobody trusts me. But I know you guys are in front of these young people. And I don't know if there's anything we can glean from you guys in trying to help folks to acquire, these young guys to acquire hope. Because if you're going to go kill somebody, you've gotten to that point where you don't care. You've gotten to that point where it's just, you know, I don't care. And that's a bad place to get to. So I don't know if you guys had any insight before we close out.
John, my youngest.
So,
y'all in the same room. Oh, okay. I'm like, how are we going to listen?
We on the streets. We on the streets.
Yeah,
we headed back out after this.
Oh, okay. I was like,
we've been in different neighborhoods today, so that's why we're together. But I guess I have a question. Because as you mentioned, Chip, it's like these guys that we talk to, they normally don't trust many people just simply because we deal with trauma where we come from. And once you're in the street culture, you kind of like you isolate yourself from new people, as they would say. So us being out there, I think it's important that we position ourselves to be able to educate. And part of being able to educate is plugging into people like Mel Wells, you Chip, you Karim, and people like you guys educating us and exposing us to new things that we can bring back to the neighborhood, to the community, when we're talking to these guys to help them understand that it's life and there's value on the other side of the wall or the other side of being outside the streets. So I think that's so important because we don't like really just to talk. We like to bring value because that's just what anybody you're dealing with, you want to bring value to the conversation or value to a person. So I think just connecting and having conversations with y'all offline and y'all, just educating us and exposing us to different things that we can share with these individuals. I think that'll bring a lot of value to their lives personally.
John, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, just to touch on
Chip, you got to set my appointment up for free because John gonna be with me. But go ahead.
Just to touch on what John is saying. Yeah, we got to be able to, like, with us having this trust with these guys, we don't want to have it for no reason. And what I mean by that is we don't want to let them down once we get them engaged. So, because that's another thing that comes with trust is being able to depend on someone. It's not just trusting that they're not going to tell on you, but they got to be able to. They don't want to have to depend on somebody. So for them to actually do put it in our hands for them to be able to depend on us to help make that transition out, we need to have more education than what we know already, and more insight, more guidance from people like you guys. And they have more resources that we may not have already or know about from you guys. So it's a blessing to be able to like be here and to be able to be in these rooms, or even not when we in these rooms or anything like that, to be able to pick up the phone and call guys like you just to get advice or anything like. Because of course we got the knowledge of hands of on the ground. That's no problem, and we know we have our own resources, but it's never a such thing as too many because everybody got different problems, everybody got different needs, and to get these guys off the streets or to stop any violence or to get them to kind of try to live a more substantial life, you got to have resources for everybody problems. You got to be able to cater to everybody's problems and be tailored towards individual issues, not just a broad kind of thing, so
individuals.
The more people we talk to like you guys is better, because we on the ground, all we think we're going to do is pass it right on to them, and they can pass it on to somebody as time goes on.
Rob, I appreciate every word that's coming out of your mouth, man. And I want you and John to realize that you bring great value.
Thank you.
Don't sell yourself short. You can, Karim's got an MBA from Harvard. The guy went to number 1, number 2 liberal arts school in the country.
Yeah.
And that can be intimidating. But the thing that is real is that Karim is saying, no, this is worthy of my time. And he's not doing this because it's something that he's gaining. He realizes the value in this, that your life, who you are, what you have accomplished thus far is of great value. And a lot of times, I've been in a lot of circles, and you see all the people I'm bringing in, right? Oh, and I got a whole list of another 20, 30 people that are coming in that are all like top notch. I have felt extremely intimidated by all of them because they're smart, way smarter than me. But in all those relationships, they've always treated me with great value because they've seen something in me. And I want you two young brothers to know you have great value. You're not somebody that's just off in the corner. You're not somebody who has no value because maybe you don't have an MBA or PhD. No, you got great value. And a lot of that is because of your mentality and your heart to serve and give. And so that's why these people come. And everyone that has come, when they leave, they text me. They're like, Chip, this was incredible. And these are folks that have been around some of the most high profile people you'll ever meet, but they find great value in you. So know that when you get advice and direction from these guys to go talk to people, you bring great value for who you are. And I appreciate it.
I agree with that.
Rob,
Thank you. I appreciate you also.
Rob and John, I'm going to let Karim say something, but I want to commit to you here, and I say it all the time to you, but I'm your mentor. Whatever you need, I'm here. I'm never going to leave you by the wayside. You can't mentor so many people, but as I teach you, I'm sure y'all will go ahead and teach other people. And I also want to thank you, Chip. A lot of people, churches all across the city, talk about stopping the violence, doing things, but they don't put them in a room with millionaires. I don't know, Karim. I don't want to just throw all your stuff out there, right? But they don't put them in a room with powerful men and women that can help take them to a whole and make them be able to level up, bro. Thank you so much, bro. Not for just, reading the word, but actually walking and existing in the word. Thank you, Chip. It means a lot to us from the hood. I said the hood. They want me to say community, man. You can't say hood. From the hood, bro. You came back to your neighborhood and you're reaching back to make a way for other people to get out the hood, to bring more people out the hood to go back and help the hood. Thank you. Love you, brother. Thank you.
Love you. Love you. Karim, you want to say anything before we close out?
Yeah, this has been first of all, the work John and Rob that y'all are doing. I was looking at it and listening, before the start. It's extremely inspiring, and I definitely I want to get together with y'all and understand how I can be helpful to what you're doing. And so I'm inspired, and my view on a lot of this issues in the community, in the hood, that we as adults, and goes for Chip, myself, Mel, like we have to also demand that society acknowledges your value. And to me, that's where guys get to a level where you're owning your business and you have some standing in the community and you have relationships, that you're advocating that, look, there's John and Rob's in every community, right?
Yeah.
And don't send my sons and daughters to a place where you wouldn't send your own sons and daughters because they don't look like you. And to me, you know, that is a basis of the way we have to, as adults, take on the banner of this fight as well, right? It's not just you in the streets. Yeah. It's our job too, to be pounding the table in many ways to flank what it is that you're doing. So I hope to do that. I hope to be financially supportive to what y'all are doing, right? Because you guys are out there making some real difference there. So I did just want to say that, and thank Chip, Mel, everybody, John, Rob, you guys for allowing me here. I love to talk to you guys about real estate. And I know, you know, there's a lot to talk about. We can talk about tactics, strategy, how to make smart investments, and to the extent that's helpful to y'all, I'm happy to do that. I have no problem with doing it, coming back and doing it. But at the end of the day, I also want to make sure that brothers understand and see people like me, right? People like what Chip are bringing here, because I didn't have any business mentors that were African American when I was. I didn't even know what business was again until I met my mentor in college, right? I didn't even know what that was. And part of what I was telling a guy who's running for mayor in New York City, like part of what we need to do as successful business people is explain to the community, right? Not only that we could be wealthy as business people and take that wealth, you know, wherever we take it, but how important we can be in helping to make sure the community and the hood has sustainability and longevity and progresses, right? And so that's part of what we need to, as business people, in my mind, continue to be thinking about, continue to be working on, continue to be reinvesting back. And so that's a commitment that I personally am trying to make and am making, and hopefully I can demonstrate that by being here and doing things to be helpful to y'all.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for being part of the family, man.
Yeah. Listen, I'm telling you this. The only thing is, if you invite him down to Philly and you get on the basketball court, don't sleep on him. This dude can ball.
The Ram just call you out, bro. You come to North Philly, you know what it's about.
Hey, I'm just trying to tell you, dude is
I'm coming with my whole. Y'all might have to get mad because I'm coming with my whole crew. My whole squad is rolling up, man. So attitude. Make sure you sweep the crowd now. Make sure you sweep the crowd.
We can put it together.
We gonna see, John. We gonna hold him to that.
We ain't got no hometown pity. We don't want to hear all that.
Players. We can put it together.
You talking trash, bro? Don't be saying we got ringers in there. We gonna see you, Karim, when you come down.
I've seen him play, and I was like, "Oh, he ain't no geek. Don't let that Ivy League mess you up, Dude can ball."
Man, we're gonna have to bring out some NBA connections on him, bro. I got you. I'll be waiting for you, brother. I'll be waiting for you.
No, listen, I gave that up,
man. Great fun, guys. Great fun, and again.
Well, hey, this has been absolutely outstanding. I really appreciate everyone making the time. We're gonna close out here. But listen, stay safe, everyone. Be blessed, and obviously, any connections y'all want to make, I'll talk to Mel. Mel has an assistant. Karim has an assistant. I don't have an assistant.
You want us to pay for assistant, Karim?
All right, I'll see you guys next time. All right.
All right, man. Peace and blessings. I'll talk to you next year. All right, Karim. All right, brother.
Bye. Thank y'all. Peace.
All right, bro.